My name is Vic Chapman and I'm talking to Brady Prescott, who is a second year student at COFA.
Yes.
And good to be here today, Brady.
Thank you, so am I.
And well, it's good for me to be here, and it's more important, it's good that you're here.
That is very true.
And we thank you for your involvement in this project. And this project that will highlight the importance of Indigenous educators.
Yep.
And will also serve to inform those people who are involved in teacher preparation about the difficulties of education of Indigenous people, that they the problems that they're experiencing and so on. And as I was saying to a previous interviewee, when I began this journey 68 years ago, there were no signposts like there are today, and there were nobody who could show the way, or were indeed willing to show the way.
Yeah.
And so I say it was a lonely journey because I made it by myself. But don't you feel anxious because we're surrounded by our folk? And so thank you again for coming in.
No, thank you.
To be involved in this project. And I'm going to talk a little bit about things that were significant to you in your education journey. What moments have been significant to you in your educational journey and why? For example, in both formal and informal contacts such as primary and secondary, university and learning in the community. What moments have been significant to you in your educational journey?
I think the most significant one was when I moved to Orange for my high school years. But previously to that, I didn't think of what I wanted as a future or where I wanted to go, if I wanted to work or if I wanted to continue my studies. So when I moved to Orange and went to a boarding school, I then started planning my future and knowing that I wanted to go into a career of some sort.
Okay. And who was the most influential person or experience along the way?
Well, I'm pretty sure everyone says that it's their parents, I guess.
Yeah.
My mum was probably the one who pushed me to move to Orange and study and to push my, education, broaden it and so on.
But any particular teacher?
It's probably both my high school art teachers that I both loved. My one in Ngiyampaa, so back home in Broken Hill, she was very, gave us the paint and the canvas to paint on and, let us explore our own ways. Where it wasn't until I went to Orange that I had structure and control, and probably when I decided that I wanted to go into art teaching was when I went to Orange, my Kinross.
Right. My own personal experience was I went to a small school, one teacher school, in 1944. There I was fortunate enough to have a teacher who more or less tested the water for himself and didn't rely on attitudes of non-Indigenous people towards Indigenous people. And our school was represented about 95% Aboriginal enrolment.
Okay, yep.
And he thought I had some educational promise and suggested I sit for a state bursary, at which I was successful.
Yeah.
And that set me on the road to the educational journey.
Yep.
Were there any Aboriginal Indigenous kids in your class?
In both experiences, both high schools, there was a lot of Aboriginal. Mostly back home in Broken Hill, there was a few of us.
Right.
It wasn't until I, as I said, went to Kinross in Orange that the numbers actually decreased. So I think throughout the whole school there was about 6 or 8 of...
Sorry, I picked up that.
I'm making too much sound. Don't do that.
No, right.
Try not to.
Right.
Try not to. It's just that always it'll pick up.
Right.
Thanks.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Each one's a new journey, Vic.
Pardon?
Each one's a new journey.
At the door also, you
Yeah,
can't
I'm not
hear.
coming back in.
Okay, thanks.
We're ready to go.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Indigenous kids in your class.
Yeah, so it wasn't, in my first high school there was a lot of us, so there was about 40 Aboriginal kids in my school. It wasn't until I actually went to Orange and where the number decreased, and there was 6 of us throughout the whole of uni, year 7 till year 12, with only, I think, 1 Aboriginal kid graduating before I did, of course. So the numbers were definitely down at my old, sorry, in my school at Orange.
Right. What, was there any noticeable difference in attitude of teachers towards Indigenous students?
I always compare when I go to high school in Broken Hill, when I went to high school in Orange. When I was in Broken Hill, everyone, it wasn't really a matter of, oh, you're Aboriginal or you're not Aboriginal. It was a very clean playing field. You were treated as anyone else.
Right.
Whereas when I went to Orange, I found that because me and the couple other girls went there as an Aboriginal program, we got that special treatment, I'd say.
Right.
And so they understood that we were Aboriginal, and some teachers used it as a positive way to try and enforce our education and help us, whereas some of them somewhat used it as a bad thing that we were there on that educational program.
So there was a negative aspect.
Yeah, there
from
was that
some,
negative.
Some teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose they're only human.
Yeah, exactly. We're only human. We can only do as much as we can.
Yeah. How important is being connected to people and community? How important is it for you?
I think it's really important. I try and go back to my community as much as I can, but you know, it's 14 hours away, so it's a bit of a drive or a bit of a fly.
Yeah.
But once I'm there, it's home to me, and the community.
Yeah.
I love the community, and the community loves me.
Yeah.
It sounds cheesy,
Yeah.
but no, I think you have to have that strong connection with your community.
Well, I empathise with you on that question, because Dubbo High School, when I was going to school, was the nearest full high school from the Queensland border.
Yep.
Dubbo's in the middle of the state, and I took every available opportunity to hop on a train and go home, even if it meant just 10, 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yes, so I have that empathy with you.
A 14-hour trip.
And what people and community and networks have been significant to you in your educational journey?
It was probably when I was at, as I said again, Kinross, when I went there. When I first went there, there was no Indigenous programs, there were no support systems or anything.
Right.
There was one lady who was an Aboriginal teacher, but there was no sort of that networking and all that sort of stuff. We then got the opportunity to create this networking, so we had our little Indigenous support system where the Indigenous kids could get together and we could help with them, the senior kids could help with the junior kids with like their homework and all that sort of stuff. So throughout high school, especially when I went to Kinross, it was quite, there wasn't any, and so we had to pretty much build up that networking system and that support.
So basically there was no...
Yeah, there was none there until I sort of started one up.
And despite the fact that there was an Aboriginal education, Aboriginal studies policy,
yeah,
mandatory one.
Yeah, well, they did teach it, but besides that, there was no actual support system for Aboriginal students.
And I think that policy says that even if there are no Indigenous people attendance or enrolment, that that policy should be worked on.
Yeah.
Why did you come to study art education?
How do I get to it? Well, when I first decided what I wanted to be when I grew up, I had this fascination with architecture and urban design, and I knew and still do absolutely love it. It wasn't until when I realised we were picking universities and that sort of stuff that the ATA was so high. It was like a 97 ATA to get into it. And I knew that was totally out of my reach, even though if I studied so hard for it, I just knew it was impossible to get. And so I decided to pick my second favourite thing was visual arts. And I was talking to my visual arts art teacher and she said, no, you'll be an amazing art teacher because you have such a passionate and love for art. And that's when I sort of got this ball rolling that I wanted to study visual arts and especially go into teaching and, you know, expressing and my love of art to other people.
Yep. In what ways is education important to you and to others?
Well, with experience, because I know there was no support and networking for me, I want to be that person that, you know, gives that support and that networking to other Indigenous students. Well, not even just other Indigenous students, just in students in general. So I want to, you know, be their rock and help them, you know, through that educational journey, especially in high school. And
yep. Why did you choose to study art education?
So as I said, it was my second favourite subject.
Sorry, I've asked you that question.
That's all right.
I'm sorry, yeah. What is important about visual arts in your learning and the learning of others? Could you give an example of how visual arts has enriched your journey and how it might enrich the journey of others?
Yep. Well, within my own experience of being an artist, before I was strictly just painting oils on canvas and that kind of stuff. Since being here, I've seen that my ability has broadened so much. Like I'm into now making installations and stuff that I would never do in my entire life. And I've just expanded my knowledge and my art practice and my art theory just because of simply being here at the COFA. And then I want to take those knowledges that I've learnt and that information and, you know, put it towards my students and teach them about, you know, there's not just traditional art, but you can expand and explore art in so many ways.
Right. And would you give an example of the systems that you have come up against in your journey and how you negotiated to move forward? What problems have you encountered in your journey so far?
In my journeys, I feel like I've had so many little hiccups, I guess. well, the whole first year of, because I'm not originally from Sydney, when I moved here, there was such a cultural differences, and you know, I was going from a country town to a big city, and so that in itself was such a challenge, because I had to, you know, reconsider everything, because, you know, how do I get to uni, and, you know, living expenses and all that sort of stuff. So that's probably the major one when I first moved to Sydney. But there's other stuff, just like workload within uni, and knowing that, you know, with high school, I'm pretty sure I was like, baby fed, spoon fed, everything, and so all that knowledge was just given to me, whereas with university I have to actually go search for that knowledge and actually put that time and effort in and work hard.
Yeah, the problems are quite sizable, aren't they, when you have to do it by yourself. And that was my experience too. Nobody came with me, and I suppose nobody came with you, and you just had to fend for yourself. But my first experience of, I saw Sydney for the first time. I had to find Macquarie Street, the university, Bridge Street, and but I think those, as I said to somebody, that those sorts of challenges stiffen your backbone.
Exactly.
And make you a stronger person. How has your view of who and what is important in becoming a professional person changed over time?
Well, I didn't really want to go into teaching to start off with, because I had this love of architecture and all that sort of stuff.
Right,
so when I first started it, I always had this vision that art teachers were, you know, really cool, and that, you know, they're your best friends and all that sort of stuff. And that's the image that I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to be that cool art teacher that, you know, everyone loved, and that they didn't do much. And it wasn't until I actually reached university that I realised that there's so much effort and work that, especially an art teacher has to do in order to, you know, make successful lesson plans, and, you know, to use behaviour management issues and all that sort of stuff, and those issues that you have to overcome.
Put in a plug for COFA here. It's it's the most exciting lecture theatre ever I've been in. People actually talk and laugh and exchange ideas. And so in my short journey into COFA, it's been a great experience. We're
a good character of people.
Oh,
there's always something interesting happening.
It's a happy place, and when people are happy, they learn more efficiently. What is the best way to assist Indigenous people, particularly, and non-Indigenous people, to achieve what you have, as you have done at this university?
I think it's all about networking, knowing that there's someone you can lean back on. Like throughout this 2 years, I've had, you know, heaps of ups and heaps of downs, but I knew that there was always, even if it was friends or if it was a lecturer, that I could go and talk to and get that support and that help that I needed to get through those issues that I was having. So that's probably the best, you know, trying to get those connections and those people on board.
Yes, I think in my short experience of COFA, the information and the support is very readily available here. What do you think about what is the best way for Indigenous people, do you think, to become active participants in the running of this country?
That one's a hard one, I guess.
Well, That's the curly one, I suppose. I shouldn't have asked that. But do you think that? Well, my thinking is that education is going to enable Indigenous people to participate in the running of this country.
Yeah.
Is that your belief as well?
Yeah, I agree.
And how do we get our people more involved in the programs that are available to them?
Yeah, I think, well, what happened to me was when I was in high school, and how I actually got to this university was through the Ngiyampaa winter school.
Right.
And I got in contact with that because a teacher came up to me at high school and was like, there's this wonderful program that they're doing, you should go to it. For that, I went away, well, I came to Sydney for a week and experienced uni life and what it is to, you know, be a student here. When I was doing the winter school, I was doing it in architecture, so it wasn't as rewarding as I would like it because I knew I wanted to become an art teacher, but it was an amazing opportunity, and that was probably when I knew that there was support systems here and that I was able to do it among people and that I wasn't the only one, you know, on this journey to be an art teacher.
Right. Yeah. As I move around the country, I see, particularly back countries in the back, you know, out back. I see a lot of kids who are not taking up the challenge of education. Just recently in Walgett, Ngiyampaa, and you see Indigenous kids walking around the street in the middle of the day when they should be at school.
Yeah.
And we know that there are programs and opportunities for those kids. We know that GPS schools have offered positions for Indigenous kids, which they accept for a time and then go back home and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. How do we combat that sort of thing? Is it a parent? Is it in the home that this sort of, that they're not getting encouragement or?
I think it's on both parties. It's both at home and, you know, that particular course or what that student was going into. I also think it's probably themselves that needs to be reconnected, and, you know, at the end of the day, get a wake-up call that, you know, education is so important that you do need it, well, these days, to get a job or to, you know, even get food on the table and all that sort of stuff. And all that sort of stuff comes down from, you know, having that education. And so I think we have to push students, and especially Indigenous students, to become and to go to classes and all that sort of stuff so they can get that education and have a great life.
I think that as well, that kids are being told that that they're not up to it.
Yeah.
And they believe it. They get to believe it. And I also always think of Eleanor Roosevelt's comment that I would like to say to every one of those kids, nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Yeah.
And I think we should be saying that to a lot of our kids out there. Do you have any other comments to add to what you've already said?
No, I don't have any other comments.
But anyway, thank you
Thank you
for talking to us about your journey.
No, thank you.